Hello, and welcome to this special interview series on nourishing knowledge, the power of food as medicine. I'm Wanda Malhotra, lifestyle journalist and CEO of Crunchy Mama Box, a platform promoting conscious living. Today's interview is part of a powerful collaboration with Authority Magazine, a medium publication that delves deep into topics that truly matter. Today, we will have the pleasure of speaking with Noelle Patno, PhD, MS, and Chief Science Officer at Bend Life. She brings expertise in molecular metabolism, nutrition, translational sciences. Her work centers on digestive health, the microbiome, and immune health, showcased through clinical trials, publications, and presentations on topics such as probiotics and prebiotics. She holds a BA in chemical engineering from Stanford University. This video is a special follow-up to the written interview previously published. For a deeper dive into the complete conversation, follow my column to read the full interview. Now, join us for an exclusive interview with Noelle Patno. Hi, Noelle. Thank you so much for doing this with us.
Thank you, Wanda. It's great to be here.
Wonderful. So, can you share a specific personal experience or pivotal moment from your journey in the field of nutrition, microbiome, and probiotics that significantly influenced your career trajectory and approach to wellness?
So when I was doing my PhD in University of Chicago and completing the analysis of the intestinal epithelial cells that were under bacterial stress, I had a great pivotal moment where we needed to expand what was actually influencing the ability of these cells to survive under this bacterial stress. And we did this high throughput screening of a library of compounds. And I'm so grateful to my colleagues who helped implement this massive collaboration. And it used a library of compounds, not only drugs that were already approved, but also vitamins and even different kinds of herbs and natural products. So for me, that really showed that in the lab is where we start to look at these ingredients and these compounds and how can these natural products help with bacterial stress conditions and survival of intestinal cells in an inflamed model. This was something that I was grateful to be part of because now that I work in this industry where we promote the usage of natural products, we really do have evidence that these natural products can help in intestinal conditions and in other areas.
So, in your experience, what common misconceptions or myths do people have often about nutrition and its impact on overall health?
So many misconceptions about nutrition and the impact on health. I like to speak to probiotics because that's more specific of my expertise. Typically, people will use probiotics just to refer to good bacteria, and they might talk about probiotics when they're really talking just about live cultures or good bacteria in some type of food, like a fermented food. But there's actually a technical definition separating probiotics versus fermented foods versus live cultures. And the International Scientific Association of Probiotics and Prebiotics has published consensus documents about these definitions. And this is important for health because then we can understand what has actually been shown to be efficacious for your health and for your conditions. Probiotics are live microorganisms that, when administered at adequate amounts, confer a health benefit on the host. So if you were to take something off the shelf that said it's a probiotic, it might not necessarily meet the ISAP definition because probiotics are not necessarily regulated or enforced under that definition. But for you to understand and know, is this actually a probiotic, we need to know, is it living? So typically colony forming units would be measured and that would be published and labeled on the product. The strain should be identified. So, for example, lactobacillus or lactiplantibacillus is the new name of the genus. Uh, Plantarum, that's a species, for example. PS128 is a strain. That should have clinical evidence behind it. So you should be able to see there's published literature, and it should be at the amount that's in your actual bottle of the product. The same thing would go for other kinds of products. So if we just talked about live cultures, you might buy a yogurt that has live cultures of Lactobacillus acidophilus or Bifidobacterium lactis. And these have been associated with health, but it's typically from more epidemiological studies, whereas probiotics would be tested in like a randomized controlled trial, or at least a small number of individuals, maybe a single arm study. But the best evidence, as we know, is from a randomized controlled trial for a specific outcome. And it might not necessarily be digestive health, right? You might be looking at diarrhea or constipation or something like that. On the other hand, some of these probiotic trials look at reduction in upper respiratory tract infections, otherwise known as the common cold. Or in the case of these gut-brain products, these gut-brain probiotics are called psychobiotics because they have an effect on a psychiatric condition or a cognitive condition. So maybe we're talking about something like Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, even a mental health, depression, anxiety, autism, etc. So you want to know that it has live microorganisms. There's an adequate amount. It's been tested to have a benefit in that disease. There's a published study on it. And then you know that it's actually a probiotic.
Fantastic.
Mhm.
Given the increasing popularity of supplements and functional foods, how can individuals discern credible information from the marketing hype when it comes to choosing products that claim to support gut health?
There is a lot of hype out there, and it can be difficult sometimes to separate the credible information from the hype. There are certain resources out there that can be seen as credible authorities. Often we would look to academic institutions, right? From the microbiome side, there's the Center for Microbiome Innovation. There are specific leaders in the field, the International Scientific Association for Probiotics and Prebiotics, I mentioned, the International Probiotics Association, IPA. So there are experts in the field, and there are also then journals or newspapers. And so you wouldn't necessarily expect a newspaper that's publishing on general information to maybe get all of those details correct. But you could go to an expert, a credible source, an institution, people who have done research and published in this area to get the right information about the actual study. And sometimes I've actually seen a news article that would say probiotics don't work, but they were actually highlighting research from somebody who wasn't a probiotics expert. So we also have to be careful about experts who are experts, but they might not be experts about what they are talking about sometimes.
That's true. To do the right research with the right experts is crucial when it comes to probiotics or anything related to your health. You're completely right. So, can you share a success story from your career where personalized nutrition or targeted probiotic interventions had a significant positive impact on an individual's health outcomes?
An example for nutritional health outcome for a particular individual. I think of a few different examples. I'm trying to think of which one I would like to share with you. And of course, I have my own personal story. I have examples from graduate school, some case studies. I was working with a naturopathic doctor, and I will just share this example. There's a method that many functional medicine doctors like to use, which is called 5R. And there are a few different versions, 3R, 6R. And it's an approach to look at overall gut health. And this doctor I was working with said that her client had a history of bacterial infection and food poisoning, and with travel and poor dietary choices, had severe gastrointestinal symptoms. I won't go into all the details. And so first she started with the gastrointestinal health assessment, and then there were various items to pull out that you could see to recommend different ingredients. So there could be herbals to reduce small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, probiotics to help with improved intestinal motility, etc., as well as some enzymes to help with the digestion and hydrochloric acid. And by following her protocol and improved dietary choices, this individual lost weight and overcame those bacterial infections.
Incredible story. Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. As a Chief Science Officer at Bend Life, how do you ensure that the products and solutions offered align with the latest scientific research and maintain high standards of quality and efficacy?
As Science Officer at Bend Life, I work with various scientists in different parts of the world, and we are working on a collaboration, which I can't speak of yet, to increase research in certain areas. And I'd like to share another case study with you that gives us precedent for future studies. So, for example, Lactobacillus plantarum PS128, which is now called Lactobacillus plantarum PS128, has been shown to be beneficial in autism in some randomized controlled trials, but these were primarily done in children and in individuals from age 3 to 20 up to 25. But a couple of case studies show us that PS128 helped someone who had more obsessive-like behaviors in addition to his autism, in terms of counting DVDs obsessively in his room. And then there was another individual who's an autistic adult as well, who just was diagnosed with autism as an adult. And she also had severe gastrointestinal problems. So from her experience of benefiting from PS128, not only from the autism perspective of being able to have reduced, she had improved tolerance for her meltdowns. Let's say that is the best way to say it. And she also experienced massive improvements in her intestinal symptoms. We would like to advance research in this area because primarily the research on PS128 in randomized controlled trials has been done in children and particularly for the autistic behaviors. But now if we could expand that research to look at gastrointestinal outcomes in autistic individuals and particularly autistic adults, particularly with high-ranking institutions and microbiome experts to understand how the microbiome is involved, that this is how we would like to advance our research and bring to the community of people who have neurological conditions, as well as to those who want to learn more about gut-brain benefits and even mental health benefits. We want to bring PS128 to everyone who can benefit. So we are advancing research with collaborators who have expertise in the microbiome and in autistic adults as well.
Phenomenal work. I love that. Wow. Thank you for sharing all that with us. What an education we got today. So thank you so much for sharing your valuable insights and expertise with us, Noelle. We wish you only continued success on your great work.
Thank you so much, Wanda. It was a pleasure speaking with you.